Greetings! Today on my Focus RS I am installing the spark plug upgrade from NGK. So these are the NGK Iridium IX one-step colder spark plugs for the Focus RS specifically, and these are of course from Mountune, so they are pre-gapped to 0.26 of an inch or 0.66 millimeters. The product code if you're buying them elsewhere is this LTR7IX-11 with stock number 6510. Pre-gapped for Mountune, you spend a little bit more to get them to do that for you. It's a bit more convenient, a bit more happy days. As you can see, they come in 4 individually packaged little boxes, which is very nice, keeping them safe. There's a little cardboard ring in there to hold it in place and protect it inside the box. So the reason why you would do this is if you're running a high boost application, so essentially anything other than stock, you could potentially see some reduced spark plug life, which essentially means wearing away of the electrode, also increased gap, which can cause like rough idle. You've probably seen on forums people complain about rough idle and stuff, and generally spark plugs is the first place that you go to sort that out. Mountune have a good description as to why you should do it, but they don't specifically say that you have to do it, or they don't even specifically mention it in their power upgrade packages, but a lot of other tuners do. They specifically say we recommend you get one step colder spark plugs such as these NGKs or the Densos. We'll say that acceleration feels smoother, and indeed it even feels faster. Whether it is actually faster or not, it's all about a feel thing. So yeah, very simple. We just need to remove our stock spark plugs and put these in, torque them up appropriately. It shouldn't take too long, it should be fairly easy. So let's jump outside and do it now. Alrighty then, underneath the bonnet, the first thing you'll need to do if you have your engine cover on is to remove it. I don't have the engine cover on, but it's very simple. Just grab it and give it a yank up and it'll come off. The spark plugs then are underneath here. They're underneath our ignition coils. So of course the first thing we need to do before we can change the spark plugs is to remove the ignition coils. Now the thing about it is that this one is underneath this part of the intake, so we are going to need to take this off. So the first thing we need to do to take this off is to loosen this clamp and this clamp. So to loosen these, you can either use a flathead screwdriver, or you can use a 7mm socket or a 7mm wrench / spanner. Alright, next we need to remove this, which is an 8mm socket. So now before we remove this, we need to unclip this bad boy. It's just sort of in this rubber bit here. It just pops out, and then there is another little, it's also in around in this plastic thing. It's kind of hard to show you. It just clips right out of there, and that's it, loose. Alright, now we have reasonably good access. Just to make it a little bit easier, I am going to take this hose clamp off, just because we need to get at these little bolts right here, and this one in particular is just kind of a bit tight in at this clamp, so just remove this clamp just to give a little bit extra space. Alright then, we need to remove the electrical connection then that is on each of the individual ignition coils. So we just pull this little plastic bit back, then we sort of push it down and it slides right off. So we'll just do that with all of them. Very simple. Next, we need to remove these bolts, and at the ends we have studs which have these like plastic bits that are holding this plastic thing on, and then you need to get underneath that, so we need to pry these off, but these ones are exposed, so we just go straight in with an 8mm socket and remove those. So just pry up. That comes right off, and then that exposes our little thing to get our socket in there. Okay, now that everything is disconnected and removed, we can simply just give our ignition coils a little bit of a jiggle and a twist, and they'll pop right out. Alright, I'm not sure how easy it is to see down in the hole in there, but you can maybe kind of see the tip of the spark plug, maybe. But yeah, basically we are going to need an extension to get down in there. So in addition to an extension for our socket wrench, we are going to need a special type of socket. So this is just a regular deep socket, 16mm, but this is what we actually need to use. This is a 16mm socket specifically for spark plugs. Maybe you can see in there, the way these work is they have like a rubber thing in there which kind of grips onto the top of the spark plug, so whenever we loosen it you can lift it out. Very simple. So yeah, just make sure you have the right kind of socket, because otherwise whenever you loosen the spark plug, it'll just sort of be really awkward to try and get out of there, and this just makes it a lot easier. So this is our setup then, our 3/8 ratchet extension and 16mm spark plug socket. Depending on where you are in the world, you may use 5/8 of an inch. That would also be correct. Now just whenever you're doing this, just go in kind of carefully. You don't want to break the spark plugs that are in there, and just carefully take it out and just very simply undo it and lift it up. So looking at the condition of this, it looks basically brand new, and the reason for that is that it is pretty much literally brand new. My spark plugs were changed about almost exactly a month ago during my 3rd year service, so it's no surprise that they look basically brand new. The reason for the change is we are working towards the next power level, but these spark plugs are good, so I'm going to put these into our NGK boxes and just keep these just in case, just as spares. Normally what you might see if you've got older spark plugs is you might see a little bit of browning around here, which is totally normal, but yeah, these look very clean and brand new because they are. Alright, now we can just repeat the exact same process to remove the other 3 spark plugs. So here's a little side-by-side of the stock plugs versus the new NGK Iridium IX. So, I mean, they look pretty similar, I'm sure you'll agree, apart from the color of these little bands. Now, I believe that is because that Ford actually just buy NGK plugs and then rebrand them to be Ford. So then for installation, we just grab one of our new spark plugs and push it up into the rubber bit and into the socket of our spark plug socket. It sort of pops in like that, so that means that it isn't going to fall out. And then we literally just go into the car and hand tighten down each spark plug first, and then once we have them all in hand tight, we will grab our torque wrench. Alright then, so we just go in here nice and slowly. We just keep going until it feels tight with the hand, which it is now, and then we move on to the next one. Right, now that we have them hand tight, I'm switching over to my torque wrench. This is the 3/8 torque wrench with the same extension, and this time I'm just using that regular 16mm deep socket that we had from before, because we don't really need to grip it with the rubber bit anymore. We just need to get in there and tighten. The torque that you want to torque down to is 15 foot-pounds, which is equivalent to 20.34 Newton meters. Alright then, now that we're nicely torqued, we can get our ignition coils back in. So they literally just push over the top. So what you want to do is position them with the electrical connection pointing towards you and just give them a little bit of a shimmy and move everything out of the way, of course, and in they should go. So when you're doing that, you'll know that it's in, you'll just by how it feels, but also you'll see that this plastic bit meets this plastic bit, so it's kind of like that's all the way in, and you can see that the rubber bit down there, well, it's kind of difficult to see on camera, but once it is sort of mating with the surface, then you are good to go. So the next thing we need to do is get our little bolt things back in. So when you're tightening these down, you don't need to torque them to a specific setting or anything, and you don't need to go over the top, you don't need to He-man it. Whenever I was taking them off, what I noticed was that they weren't really on that tight. So just whenever you're taking them off at the start, if you just sort of try and gauge just how tight they are and use that as a reference for how much you're going to tighten them once putting them back in. So now that our ignition coils are nicely secured, we just need to reconnect our electrical connections, which is very simple. Just push them on. Once they are on, we just push that little white plastic bit forward, clicks into place. Done. Now all that's left to do is to put our intake back in, tighten up those hose clamps and those bolts, and then we'll be installation complete. Alright, sweet, that is the installation done, everything's connected back up. So now all I guess I need to do is to fire up the car and make sure that everything is okay. Jump in. Yeah, just take a step back, it's a bit loud doing its cold start, but yeah, sounds good, all is well. Well, there we go, that is the installation complete of our new one-step colder NGK Iridium spark plugs on my Focus RS. Installation quick, easy, painless, and I'm sure they will serve us very well going forward as we push more boost, more power. So, I hope you like that, I hope you like this little video. Thank you so much for watching. Please do like, share and subscribe for more content to come very, very soon. Thank you once again. Goodbye.